Hello, welcome to Have a Go, and I'm Alan. Now, we're going to start work on the carriage for this thing. As you've got to remember, there's basically about 4 components overall to the lathe. There's the bed here, which is more or less finished. There's the headstock that has the spindle going to the motor that spins around. So spindle here, headstock. In the middle you have the carriage, which precisely moves the cutting tool up and down the bed, across the bed, and also at an angle. And down the end you have the tailstock, which can be used to hold a drill precisely aligned with the spindle, or hold a centre at the end to hold something in alignment along the axis of the lathe, or anything else in general. So we're going to start casting the pieces for the carriage today. Incidentally, I also put this on a set of bathroom scales, and it currently weighs 12 kilograms. Alright, let's get this out of the way and get the casting underway. Alright, we're going to do a false cope for this one, which means that we're going to fill this with sand, tap in the pattern halfway down, ram up the drag on top of that, roll it over, and then we'll knock this one out altogether and repack it because it won't be accurate to the pattern. Hopefully this will make a bit more sense as I go along. Now the reason we're doing this in the cope is so that this channel here, once this is flipped over, the channel will actually be sitting on the face of the drag, so the drag will be on the bottom when we finish up, and rather than the channel here hanging from the cope, it'll be sitting on the drag, so should stay there a lot better. Now I'm putting these in because I don't really want to waste the space, and they need simple bedding as well. Right, new addition, I have picked up a garden sieve. So the hope is that this will break up the big lumps of sand so that I hopefully get a better finish. I tried doing this with the kitchen sieve, but it was far too fine and the sand actually just got stuck in the sieve. This is coarse enough that hopefully it should work. As far as what measures goes, it's the only mesh that they had at the garden centre. Yeah, this is working nicely. There you go, another casting tip for you. Get a garden sieve. Incidentally, you do a similar thing when you're making scones, in that you put the flour and other dry ingredients through a kitchen sieve in order to break up any lumps. Although I don't intend to bake this in the oven, it will be baked by the aluminium. Right. Now you might be saying, Alan, you had that rammed up already. Why did you tip it out? The reason is because in some of the pads here are below the surface of the parting line. So I couldn't be sure that the sand was rammed in up to the actual pattern itself. Not, and that there wasn't a gap between the sand and the pattern. So, only way to be sure, tip it out and ram up a new cope. Right, get out the new sieve. Although one good thing, as soon as I took the sand out into the container, I now know that I have pretty much enough sand in that container. Right, now to see if I've been wasting my time. Hopefully this goes better than the first one, because I forgot to cut the gate from the riser to the actual mould cavity, so the metal went down, there was no gate for it to flow through, because I'm an idiot. I didn't film the actual casting of this one because I needed to get it done before the rain caught up with me. Oh, that looks very nice. The crank handles look very usable. Bit of clean up, of course. Very happy with how this has come out. It looks like that sieve was just a ticket. So I've got a very nice surface finish on this. Doesn't look all crappy like the first one. Alright, this has cooled down enough that we can start working on it. First order of business, cutting this off. I wonder if that's enough. Yep, that's enough. Right, this is the rough casting before I do anything to it. Came out quite nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up the sides with the files in the belt sander, but I'm not going to touch the pads with the belt sander, and I'm also going to avoid using files on these pads unless I have to, because I want these pads to stay parallel flat to each other. So let's get stuck into it. Right, I'm only going to be using the file on the outside edges, because the files can actually rock this way and put a bow in it if you're not careful. And I don't want the pads bowed, but this is mostly for cosmetics and to make it look nice. I'm still amazed at just how fast files can take stuff off. This part here is not part of the pads. This is meant to be about 3 mil high of the actual bed itself. This is some 80 grit sandpaper. Right, I've got the pads scraped into where I'm happy with them. I thought I'd just take the time to explain a bit more theory. Now, this is all about precision, which is something of an alien word to me, but let's move past that. Now, we want the crossfly to move smoothly along the ways. This is upside down, of course, and not go like this as it goes up and down. So how do we do that? Well, one way would be to make the channel here exactly the width of the ways, which would be really annoying and hard to do with my limited resources. But the traditional way of solving this problem is to have a gib. So I'll cut this to length to fit in here, and there'll be a couple of screws going through the casting to hold this precisely against the ways. See, so that the gib here will hold the carriage perfectly smooth with the ways. And holding this whole assembly together is a couple of clamps. One clamp will go here, the other clamp will go here, covering both the gib strip and the ways. And that's roughly how it'll work, except it'll be better. Just checking whether I needed to actually sand off any of this before I started scraping. Right, this is a drill press vise. As seems to be in tradition, my casting is a little bit different to the book. Right, this has to be 1/4 of an inch stick out here. I don't really like working an imperial bit. No point swimming uphill. I've got my calipers set to 1 1/4, and I'm using them as a gauge. I know I've broken through to the Zamek because the metal flakes look a lot different. Yep. New shears, first use for them, getting into the dolly hole punctures. We've got the clamps on the carriage now. Unfortunately, The gap there is just a little bit too small to actually fit on the ways. That is intentional, however, and we're going to fix that by putting some shim stock in between the clamps and the carriage. How thick any of this is, I have no idea at all. You're about to see the finest micrometer that $33 New Zealand will buy you. There we go. If anyone knows a good way of measuring out this shim stuff, let me know in the comments. That didn't punch very well. Again, if someone knows a better way of doing this, let me know. Hey, that did it. Brute force. If you're wondering what this shim stock feels like to handle, imagine tinfoil that was strong enough that you could make origami out of it. This is getting ridiculous. Yay! And that's how you shim, so just enough. By the way, when I measured these, I found like this was 0.06 mil thick, this was 0.13 thick, that was 0.1 mil thick, so that's what those numbers are for. Alright, I'm going to cut some of the key stock. These are two M5 bolts that will go in there. This is an M6 bolt that will go in here as a placeholder, because I want to put a thumb screw in there, but I don't actually have one on hand. Well, I initially thought that this little drill press was cheap and crappy, but it's really been proving its worth today. What I just did was grind some tips on these screws. Don't know how well you can see it. The reason being that the tips of the screws are what push on the gib strip. Right, I'm going to crank these down a lot harder than I normally would. Hopefully by tightening them down like that, I will have made some divots on the strip. The reason I drilled those little divots in the key stock there was to give the gib screws something to positively register into, to stop the gib strip itself from staying where it was when the carriage slides off. Now the reason why it's very unsteady moving along is because while I did scrape the back of this flat on the surface plate, I did not scrape the this side of it, so the sides aren't parallel, so it's thin in some parts and wide in others. So I need to go over it with some, I need to put some Prussian blue stain along here, slide this up and down, and wherever it gets rubbed off I know that it's too thick there. That's beautiful. So it's been a very productive weekend despite the weather on Saturday. So I'll tidy up, but for now I'll say thank you for watching and have a nice day.